Hey folks, I'm Mark Ryan. This is Super Review, and well, this is the RikuBuds Alter Writer 3. That's right, we're talking about earbuds today. And it's been a while since I reviewed an earbud on the channel, but it's not entirely new to me because, well, okay, let's see. A couple of years ago, I probably reviewed, I believe it was called the Nice HCKEBX21, awful name, and to be honest, also a very, very awful audio product. There was also the Astrotech Lyra, which I was not a big fan of, but then many, many moons ago, there were a couple of earbuds that I listened to that I actually liked. In fact, like the original Apple EarPods. Those are not bad actually when it comes to earbuds, but I guess I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself because you might be thinking, why earbuds in the first place? And I think a lot of people, they tend to gravitate toward earbuds because they appreciate the fact that they are effectively like open back earphones, right? If you're used to IEMs, they're equivalent to kind of closed back audio, whereas an earbud like this is more closely aligned with an open back headphone. So you get not just you don't have that isolation from your environment, which could be a good thing or a bad thing depending on what you're into. But you also just get generally a bigger sound presentation. It feels more open. It feels like you're getting more of a head stage out of it. And that's what people tend to gravitate toward these for. Now, I don't personally listen to them that much, partly because to be honest, they're not my favorite. They're not my favorite audio product, if I'm perfectly honest. And yet, nonetheless, I am here reviewing one. What I will say is that I'm actually just kind of interested in this whole new world of earbuds. And by whole new world, I mean like this DIY market, right? And that's exactly what we're talking about today here. So we've got the RikuBuds. This is made by a DIY maker named Rikudo Goku. And you might recognize his name because he used to do IEM reviews. And now he's gotten into making his own earbuds. In fact, we're kind of homies on Discord. So if you think that discredits my review, just full transparency, I do know the guy that made this thing. He sent it to me in for review. And I will have him linked in the description down below if you want to check it out. But let's talk about this earbud specifically. So this is the Alter Writer 3. The 3 in there indicates that it is part of his third generation of earbuds, and I haven't followed generations 1 and 2. I'm sorry to say, but I will say that what I know about this one is that it is using an all-new custom shell. So a lot of these DIY earbuds are using basically the same shells that I think it's based on like a Sennheiser MX500 is what it originates from. And there's a couple of others, like a metallic bell shape that you'll see with some others. But here with the Alter Writer 3, he's actually got his own custom 3D printed shells, which I think is kind of a neat idea. I know he's got some marketing material about the pattern on the inside. You can kind of see these little plastic nubbins in there, having some sort of impact on the audio quality. Obviously, as a person just listening to the audio product, I can neither confirm nor deny that that's what's happening, but I don't know, it's interesting nonetheless. Here, I'll give you a bit of a fit demonstration so you can see what the Alter Writer 3 looks like in my ear, and hopefully I've got that roughly in view. I'll move back and forth just to make sure. But yeah, I mean, it fits like a lot of earbuds, although because it is using a different shell, it does fit somewhat differently than the standard MX. I would say that for my ears, the MX 500 shell actually fits a little bit better. This one, let's see, I can just kind of show you real quickly, like the angle on the earbud to the stem is not quite the same, or it doesn't quite like wrap around the inside of my ear as well as, again, that standard MX 500 shell. But I mean, I don't know. Otherwise, it fits like an earbud, which is pretty standard. Here's one thing to call out. If you don't have any experience with earbuds, which would be kind of wild, probably you've heard an Apple EarPod. But if you haven't, this little nubbin right here on the ear, that's kind of a vital part to have. Some people's ears don't really have a good way to latch onto earbuds. So your mileage may vary with fit and comfort, and to be honest, your mileage may vary with sound as well, because these things they tend to be very impacted by your own ear anatomy when it comes to sound. But we'll get to talking about the sound in a little bit. I will continue talking about the build quality on this thing in terms of the foam. So you see this thing has got a pair of white foams on it. That is the stock default foam. It also comes with this carry case and a bunch of spare foams, including some colored foams, some black foams, and those foams don't just change the aesthetic of it, although they do that as well. But the thickness of the foam will very much, I think, pretty significantly impact the sound that you get inside your ear. Typically, the thicker the foam, the more seal that you're going to get, and the more kind of low end and bass that you're going to hear from the earbud. and the white ones that he has here pre-installed are the thickest of the bunch. So I did try it a little bit actually with the standard black foams, and it leaned out the sound a little bit for me. And to be honest, I might even preferred the sound with the black foams, but I figured, this is his earbud. I'll listen to it the way that he intended, and that's the way that I've been listening to it for the most part. Apart from the earbuds themselves, okay, they are not on a removable cable. That is pretty standard for earbuds. But you do have a, pretty DIY looking little right channel indicator there, but it's nice that you have some indicator at all. And then the cable that this thing comes on is a pretty nice little cable. Honestly, it's like thin and it might not look like much, but if you can't tell, this thing is not memory prone. It's nice and soft and supple. And yeah, I don't know. Generally, I dig the cable. It does look like Rikoda will put this thing on a slightly thicker cable if you order it with a 4.4 millimeter balance connection. Now, obviously here I've got the standard 3.5 millimeter balance or unbalanced connector. But yeah, that's just something to look forward to, I suppose, if you want to drive this thing balanced. I'm not really into the balance memes, I'll be honest. Although I do know some people. Well, just a lot of these earbuds tend to be fairly high impedance. A lot of them are 150 ohms, 300 ohms. And to be honest, I don't remember what the impedance is here on the Ultrarider 3. I probably should have figured that out right before this, but I don't know. Maybe I'll put it in the description or something. But I'll just say I didn't have any issues running this thing off my MacBook, my M1 MacBook Air. So I think you should be able to run it off of pretty much anything. Apart from that, look, there's not much to talk about the physical stuff. So let's talk about the sound here on the Ultrarider 3. And it's actually interesting. So I mentioned up front that like your anatomy is going to impact the sound that you get out of an earbud pretty significantly. I mean, even just wearing an earbud, like this, or like slightly angling it out like that will change the sound quite a bit. Wearing thicker pads will change the sound. There's a lot of ways to impact the sound on an earbud and kind of like customize it, I suppose, and tune it to your ear. And because of that, I think that also, just listening impressions are probably going to vary somewhat between people. So I say that as sort of a preamble to say that the way that Rikoda Goku described this on his website was sort of like a neutral but impactful sound. And I got to say, to my ear, this sounds fairly warm actually, and a little bit on the bass heavy side, at least for an earbud. Now, I mean, full disclosure, like earbuds tend to not be super, super bassy. And I wouldn't say this is like as warm and thick and bassy as something like oh my gosh, what is it? A VE Monk. That's kind of like the go-to for bass heads, which I don't really like the VE Monk that much, but this is not quite that warm and thick. But it is definitely leaning more toward that versus something like the Apple EarPods, which are pretty lean and bright, okay? So just to kind of orient yourself around the sound here, I would say that this is kind of a warm, thickish sound, a little bit muted in the vocals, but there is some, I would say like mid-treble emphasis that is giving it a decent sense of contrast. Now, what I mentioned, the reason that people like earbuds is for that kind of expansive head stage. And I would say that the Ultrarider 3 actually does, I would say, an above average job with that, even in comparison to some other earbuds. So that's good. I would say that I'm not actually the biggest fan of the tonal balance, and the treble just kind of has going on the same sort of thing that, I don't know, turns me off of a lot of earbuds in general. It's just like a kind of a low-res scratchiness to it. It's not like unpleasant. It's not uncomfortable. It's not like a sharpness like you might get in a bad treble in an IEM or something like that. It's just like typical. Again, if you've heard an Apple EarPod, you've probably heard something roughly like what I'm describing in the treble. And that just happens to be the case with pretty much all earbuds, which is part of why I'm personally not a big consumer of earbud audio, I suppose. But that is what I think about the sound here of the Ultrarider 3 in isolation. But I did actually get a chance to compare it with another very popular DIY earbud. This is the TGX Gear Serratus. And well, this one you can see it is on a balance connector, although again, I don't know that it necessarily needs it, but if you want it, there you go. But yeah, between these two, you know what? I didn't even talk about the price. So the price on the Ultrarider 3 is 100 euros. It nets out to about $110 US right now. The Serratus, I believe, is around 200 bucks. So it's a little bit more pricey. But both of these are effectively DIY earbuds that you can, and by DIY, I just mean that they're made by builders. You don't buy them in parts and have to build them yourself. But yeah, they are made by just like enthusiast builders that you can get in touch with and order from. But yeah, how they vary in terms of sound. The Serratus, I would say, is totally more normal. Like it just has a more present upper mid range, more present vocals, and maybe a little bit more emphasis in the bass. So it sounds maybe a little bit more V-shaped, I suppose, because of that. Whereas the Ultrarider 3, I find, is a little bit thicker and kind of warmer and more like reserved in its sound signature. Now, again, this one does still have a little bit of treble emphasis to give it a sense of contrast. But overall, I would say that this one sounds just the more normal. If you're more used to hearing, I don't know, like if you're used to hearing the earpods, I suppose, as your frame of reference. Apart from just the tonal balance differences, I would say that the imaging is a little bit better here on the Serratus, at least to my ear, a little bit more precise in terms of positioning. But where I think the Ultrarider 3 is actually better is, again, in terms of that width and that head stage, where I do think that this warm, laid-back tune with the somewhat recessed vocals actually do lend this to sounding pretty wide, actually. And again, that's in comparison to other earbuds, which already sound generally quite a bit wider than you're going to get out of most IEMs. So yeah, that's generally my thoughts on the Ultrarider 3. It's been a while since I reviewed an earbud. I would say that this is definitely better than things like the nice HCK EBX and the Astrotech Lyra. Those were not very good sounding earphones. This thing is a lot of fun. Again, is it necessarily my world? Is it what I'm going to be into and listening to a lot? I don't know, maybe not. But if you're into earbuds, I think it's worth checking out. I'd give it 3 stars out of 5. And if you're interested in checking out, I do have links to where you can find this down below. I got links to RikuBuds' website, as well as you can probably find Rikudo Goku on Discord and interact with him directly if that's what you prefer. But anyway, while you're down there, please do hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, ding the YouTube bell, and I'll catch you on the next super review. Cheers.